So this is a biggie. We're going to isolate one of the radicals. I'm going to choose to isolate the 2x minus 1, which means I'm going to move this radical over to the other side by adding the square root of x minus 1 to both sides. So that leaves me with the square root of 2x minus 1 equals 1 plus the square root of x minus 1. I'm going to square both sides now. That will get rid of the radical on the left side, but it won't get rid of the radical on the right side because I've got a binomial. In other words, I've got two terms, and it means I've got to do a little bit of multiplying out. But on the left side, I now have 2x minus 1. So now I'm going to FOIL or multiply out these brackets. 1 times 1 plus root x minus 1 plus root x minus 1 equals, now here the root x minus 1 times root x minus 1 is a perfect square, so it's going to be plus x minus 1. The radical disappears there too. So simplifying, these two will cancel. These two will combine. So I have 2x minus 1 equals 2 root x minus 1s plus x. Now I'm going to get the radical all by itself again, so I'm going to subtract x from both sides, which leaves me with x minus 1 equals 2 root x minus 1. Now I know in the lesson we said that you should get the radical all by itself, but if I divided by 2 here, I'd get fractions on the left side, and I don't want fractions, so I'm going to square both sides at this point. You have to be a little bit careful with that. In the left side, we've got x minus 1 times x minus 1. That's what the x minus 1 all squared means. On the right side, the 2 is squared, and the square root of x minus 1 times x minus 1 means the radical disappears. So that's a bit tricky, but it is less tricky, I think, than dealing with fractions. So now I'm going to multiply the bracket out on the left. It's x squared minus x plus 1, and multiply the 4 into the bracket to get that. Now I've got a quadratic, which means I need a 0 on the right side or one side, so I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides, and I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So that leaves me with x squared minus x minus x minus 4x is minus 6x plus 5 equals 0. This is a quadratic equation that you can factor. What multiplies to give me positive 5 and adds together to give me negative 6, x minus 5 times x minus 1, which means that I can solve each of these brackets separately and get x equals 5, and the other bracket I get x equals 1. And then it's up to you to check to make sure these both work, but you will see that if you plug them into the original, they both are solutions.